Welcome to the Degenerate Dillon podcast, where Dillon has you covered with everything from spreads to futures to prop bets. Follow him every weekday as we pick daily best bets using stats, analytics, and a little bit of luck. Now here's your host, Degenerate Dillon himself, Dillon Nelson.
Welcome back into another episode of the Degenerate Dillon podcast. I appreciate all of you guys that listen to the show. You guys are awesome, man. Thank you so much. Whether you take my advice or not, you don't know how much I appreciate it. It's awesome. It's a sweet thing in this world. Good Lord, I love y'all. But short of that little bit of love, we got some great, and I mean great with a capital G, college hoops action tonight. It's awesome. It's awesome. At night, it's on all day. Not to mention, we got the Players' Championship starting today. That's awesome. Go Xander Schauffele. Got some money on you, bud. Hope you win this Players' Championship. I don't think, just to touch base on that for a little bit, I don't think Rory repeats from not last year's, but 2 years ago, because last year's Players' Championship got shut down due to COVID. But I don't think Rory repeats. I think the front runners in this are going to be Rahm, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, and Colin Morikawa. I did do a little DraftKings lineup. I actually can touch base on that. I put it on Twitter last night. I do not have it memorized. It's 7 o'clock in the morning Central Standard Time. So yeah, it should have already started. I'll show you my lineup. So yeah, I got Xander Schauffele, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, who I also think is kind of he's not really a dark horse anymore, but he's playing very well, and he has this whole entire year. Zalatoris, another guy that's kind of come off the Kinetic Tour earlier, maybe the end of last year, and has placed top 15, top 20s all year long and made the cut all year long. So I think he's kind of a sleeper pick. I got Kirk and Hahn also as kind of a lower. It's DraftKings, so you got to make a team within a budget. So they're a little bit lower tier players, cheaper players, so I could get those upper tier ones. But those two guys have made cuts all year and made top 10. So we'll see how they do. But yeah, just to touch on that, the players. But as we shift over to college basketball, we got some great games today. Excuse me. Oklahoma State and West Virginia is the first game of the day in the Big 12, starting at 10:30. Oklahoma State's last game was against West Virginia, winning 85-80. They didn't have Cunningham or Lika Keeley, I think is how you say his name. He's their top rebounder and one of their best players. But Cunningham and Lika Keeley were both out. They are both back tonight. So you can really understand where I'm kind of going with this. Oklahoma State beat them just last weekend without their two-star players. They get their two-star players back in the Big 12 tournament. Come on. Vegas keeps making Oklahoma State dogs, and Oklahoma State keeps proving them wrong with a 10-3 record as underdogs this year. That's impressive. That's a really impressive number. Not a lot of teams have that number. OSU has won 6 of their last 7 games and covered their last 6 games in a row. Impressive. I really like Culver and McBride for West Virginia, but I'm going to play the hot play and base my pick off the last game this last weekend and take Oklahoma State. I'm going to take Oklahoma State in the money line. You can play the 3.5 that the line is, right? Yeah, 3. Line's 3. You can play the 3, but I'm going to play the money line and try to make a little bit of money here. I think that's a great move. West Virginia is going to be a really good team in March. They're going to make probably the Sweet 16. I don't see them getting upset by a 14 or 13 seed team, depending on, where they're placed. But I do think they're playing one of the hottest teams in the country, especially when Cade Cunningham is rolling and they get Lika Keeley back. This team, I think, has the potential to make a Final Four run this year if they get into March Madness, which it looks like they're probably going to, unless the NCAA decides they want to be jerks again and hop in right before March and decline their appeal. But we'll see on that. But I really think this OSU team could win this Big 12 tournament and make a really deep run into March. So I'm going to play Oklahoma State in the money line here. I think that's one of my best plays today. Moving on to the Big 10, Maryland taking on Michigan State. I took a lot of the early games so you guys could hear this and maybe get to it a little bit quicker. Maryland taking on Michigan State. Maryland is 1 point favorites. A couple bulletin points. Maryland is in the big dance as a projected 10 seed with not a lot to prove. I don't think if they lose this game, to say that if they lose this game, they're not out. They might be in that first 4 bye or last 4 in region, Maryland, if they lose this game, but I don't think they're out. Michigan State, on the other hand, is one of those teams in the first 4 byes. With this loss, I still think they're in. I still think Michigan State is in if they lose this game, but it puts them literally dead smack dab on the line, and that's not where you want to be. As a blue blood, I think they're a little bit more comfortable there than, say, in Arkansas. For instance, if Arkansas was on that bubble, if Michigan State and Arkansas had competing resumes that were about the same and they were both on that line, Michigan State would get the bump just because they're a blue blood. So, to say the least, Michigan State would be a little bit more comfortable on that line than Maryland, but I don't think Maryland's going to be on that line with a loss, and I think Michigan State will be on that line with a loss. Michigan State also beat Michigan this last weekend in a really big upset, beating the crap out of them. Maryland, on the other hand, has lost 2 in a row to Penn State and Northwestern, some of the bottom feeders in the Big Ten. Penn State has shown glimpses this year of being a decent team, and Northwestern actually lost last night, so they're already out of the tournament. So I really think Michigan, and this is, where after all of that said, I think Michigan State has a little bit more to play for here. It's kind of like a Duke scenario in the ACC tournament. Duke has everything to play for because if they don't win at least 3 or 4 games, they're not going to get into March. Michigan State, I feel like if they don't win this game, doesn't get into March. So I'm going to take Michigan State and the 1 point, or pick them however you get it. I'm sure it's either or. But I would take Michigan State in this game. I think they have a little bit more to prove. I think they're the hotter team, just beating the number 2 team in the country in Michigan. I just think that's the right play. Better coach, too. I mean, come on. Michigan State's a blue blood program. Take them in this tournament. Take them against Maryland. They're playing better. They have more to prove. Take Michigan State. Third game, another early game in the SEC tournament, Kentucky and Mississippi State. The line is Kentucky by 3.5. Both teams, no secret, have to win this tournament to get into March. Kentucky is an awful team against the spread, going 7-15-2 overall this season and 2-7-1 in their last 10. UK just did blow out South Carolina, but who hasn't blown out South Carolina in the last couple of weeks? That team's given up. It's not any good. It's trash. They'll lose today too. Mississippi State just lost to Auburn. This is one of those games. I really don't like, because of the way Kentucky has played this whole year. I don't like the youth aspect of this team in a conference tournament where they know that they have to win the whole thing to get into March. That's a lot of pressure to put on some young bloods. That's a lot of pressure. On the other hand, Mississippi State is probably a lesser talented, more veteran-based team. But when you say that, it's not like Mississippi State has seen a lot of postseason action the last couple of years. Ben Howland's a good coach. This is a decent team. Decent. So it's a middle pack, bottom tier team in the SEC. But this is also one of those games. I think I'm going to follow the money here. I think I'm going to go with the bigger bettors in Vegas. There's 86% of the money on UK. I really don't like the youth in this tournament, but I think Kentucky wins this game. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure Kentucky has to play Alabama if they win this game. I really don't like Kentucky in that game. Alabama's not playing fantastic, but I really don't like Kentucky in that game. But I like Kentucky in this game. I think Kentucky will win this game and then lose the next day to Alabama. But saying that, take Kentucky, take the 3.5. I think that's the play here. I think that's, 86% of the money. That's obviously the play here. Also, some of the games I don't have written down, we'll just touch on real quick because there's so much college basketball action on tonight. I love and live it. It's awesome. Syracuse plays Virginia this morning in the ACC tournament. Syracuse just blew the gates off of, who did they play in their last game? The first round of the SEC tournament. NC State, 89-68 in the first round. Playing good. They play Virginia today. Virginia is not a high-scoring team. They're a defensive team, and they have had spurts this year where they have not played great. I could see Syracuse trying to make it into March. They're one of those teams, like we talked about. They're one of those teams that is playing to get into March. If you win this game as Syracuse, you're in March. There's a lot of momentum going for Syracuse right now in this game against Virginia. Virginia's favored by 5.5. I'd be tempted to take Syracuse to cover the 5.5 there. I really would be. I almost be tempted to take the money line just to take a shot at it. But do that at your own risk. It's up to you. I'm not going to bet this game. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it because I really, ever since Melo back in the 2003 NCAA tournament, that's when I became a huge Carmelo Anthony fan. But I kind of like Syracuse a little bit, just a tad bit. It's kind of something to root for. But I really like Syracuse in this game. But like I said, I'm not going to bet it. I'm just going to sit back and watch Syracuse do work against Virginia. Minnesota and Ohio State. Minnesota played a pretty good game last night against Northwestern. Ohio State has lost 4 games in a row. They are not trending in the right direction going into March. But Ohio State is still Ohio State. They're still one of the best teams in the Big Ten, regardless of how they've played the last 4 games. Excuse me. Still coffee time at 7 in the morning. Minnesota 6-14 this year against the Big Ten. Just not impressive, but the 11.5 line that they give OSU in this game, I think Minnesota can cover based off the way Ohio State has played the last 4 games. Then again, having said that, Ohio State is still one of the best teams in the Big Ten. Do not underestimate them. They could come into this game and play a team like Minnesota that's not that great and beat the brakes off them. Just saying. Another game I'm not betting. I really love Ohio State too, and in this year, not as a school or a team, but I like Ohio State this year. I really love E.J. Liddell. He's one of my favorite players. I've said that before. It's like a beating a dead horse here. Vanderbilt in Florida. Florida's line is 8. Vanderbilt played pretty good last night in the first game of the SEC tournament, beating a Texas A&M team that just came off a really close game against Arkansas. Vanderbilt meets their end here. But do they cover the 8 points? I think so. I think they do cover the 8 here. I'm not going to bet this game, but my opinion on the line in this game would be to take Vanderbilt to cover the 8. Kansas State and Baylor. Baylor's favored by 19.5, almost 20 points. I think that's correct, but Kansas State has played pretty good of late. Let me look at their analytics real quick. Boy, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Boy, Kansas State lost 13 in a row in the middle of the season, and then they've won 4 of their last 5. Wins against OU, TCU, a loss against West Virginia. It's Baylor, though. It's Baylor. But then again, does Baylor come out and play like they've played all year in a Big 12 tournament that's almost, I don't want to say meaningless because everybody wants to win their conference tournament, but it's almost meaningless. This team is a lock at number 1 seed in March Madness. Do they really care about this game enough to cover that almost 20-point spread? I don't know. I think so. I think I would bet Baylor there. You go look at their against the spread numbers. It's insane. Another game we can touch on. Good Lord, there's so much good basketball on today. It's crazy. We'll just run through them quick fire. I don't want to hold y'all up. Butler, Creighton. Take Creighton in the 11. Creighton's a beast. They're another team I could definitely see going deep into March. Oklahoma, Kansas. Kansas, we heard, is without David McCormick. And another player that could be a little bit closer than some think. I still think Kansas wins that game. The line's at Kansas 3.5. I would probably take Kansas in the 3.5. Duke at Florida State. This game is going to be really good, folks. Really good. If Duke wins this game, I think they're in March. So there's a lot of momentum for Duke in this game. There's a lot of I can't think of the word, but they want to win this game really bad to get into March. So I really like Duke. The line's at Florida State at 4. Florida State's a really good team, though, guys. I don't know. I'll leave that up to y'all. Indiana, Rutgers. I think Indiana wins this game. Rutgers 10-10 in the Big Ten. Indiana 7-12. Rutgers favored by 3. I like Indiana in this game. Georgia, Missouri. See, this one I am going to bet. I'm going to bet Georgia money line. I think Georgia's playing really good right now. They won their last game last weekend. I don't like the way Missouri's playing at the end of the year. I like Georgia in this game a lot. I'm going to bet the money line. I'm not going to get too much into it, but just a gut feeling that I have. North Carolina, Virginia Tech. UNC's favored by 3.5 against the number 22 team in the country. I think that line's right. North Carolina's playing out of their minds right now. That front court is deadly. I don't want to see North Carolina again as a Razorback fan. NCAA committee, do not put North Carolina on our side of the bracket. We've played them the last 2 times we've been in a March. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. I don't want to see this team right now. I don't think anybody wants to see this team right now. Take UNC in the 3.5. I think they win that. South Carolina, Ole Miss. Ole Miss favored by 7. Take Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a dark horse to win the SEC championship this year. Lock it up. Lock it. I locked that up on Tuesday. I took Ole Miss to win the SEC tournament. I think it was 45-1 odds. So take Ole Miss in the 7 points against South Carolina. South Carolina is terrible. Oh, Texas Tech and Texas. Good Lord, there's so many good games tonight. How do you only do a 15-minute podcast on a Thursday during conference tournament week that has all these games? I just can't do it. I got to talk about them all at least a little bit. Texas Tech and Texas play tonight. The line is Texas Tech at 1.5. Take Texas. I really like Andrew Jones. This offense is whistling right now, and Texas Tech has kind of veered off a little bit during the last part of the season. Mac McClung's been getting a little bit more attention from teams, getting double teamed and whatnot. Take Texas to win this game. I think it's a safe bet. Oh boy, I think that's it. I think we're gonna stop right there and save y'all a little bit more time of me rambling on. But you got my 3 my three bets of the day that I'm really leaning towards putting a lot of money on is these first three games of the day. We'll go over them real quick again. Oklahoma State, West Virginia, I'm taking OSU money line. Maryland and Michigan State, I'm taking Michigan State. And Kentucky and Mississippi State, I'm taking Kentucky and the points. But that's it for me. Y'all enjoy this. Enjoy this. Because a year ago today, this was all shut down. We did not get March basketball. So if you can, at all, sit back, enjoy, relax, have a cold beverage, and watch these college basketball teams go to work, because it is going to be an awesome conference tournament weekend, and then March Madness comes next week. But that'll be it for me today, guys. I really appreciate y'all tuning in. Awesome show today. We'll get back in it. We're going to have Jackson Collier of JC Hoops Pod on the show coming Monday. The show will probably be published on Tuesday, but he's going to come on Monday, and we're going to do our bracket preview, because by then the bracket will be out and we can select our teams officially and see who wins March. We also got Pamela Mendoza. Pamela Mendoza. I think it's Pamela. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong, Pamela. But Pamela Maldonado. Pamela Maldonado of the Stacks of Stats podcast. We have talked to her about coming on the show. She works currently for Odd Sharks. I'm trying to get a little bit more women on the show to try to see their side of this this community that is sports gambling. So I'm really excited about that. I appreciate her getting back with me, but stay tuned for that. We have some awesome stuff coming up, awesome March Madness coming up. I really appreciate y'all listening. Again, I know I said that, but I really, really do. But yeah, that's it for me. Enjoy the basketball. We'll catch y'all mañana. Take it easy.